Hello everybody, welcome to my channel. This is James, and today I'm going to be doing a video which is a follow-up to an earlier video I made where I introduced an issue that I'm having with my Saito FA-62 engine, which is powering this Hangar 9 Piper Cub. And I got this plane because I just kind of like, I got it just so I can kind of putt around in the sky with it and kind of have some lazy day flying type stuff. So I thought it would be fun, and I always liked the Piper Cub. And it's been flying great I've had this thing for about 3 years with this engine on it, and things have been fine. And it does, and I have had in the past, I've had some bumpy landings here and there. But recently, actually my last time I went flying, this thing kept cutting out at about half a tank. So I have a 10-ounce tank in this, in the plane here. You can kind of see it, oops, kind of see it back in there. And with this engine, because it's a 4-stroke, it's really efficient, and it's a powerful engine. So basically, with the 10-ounce tank, if I'm putting around at about half throttle, which I typically do, I can fly this thing for probably 20 minutes. And that means about 10 minutes into it, I'm about halfway through my tank, right? So what's been happening is when I get about halfway through my flights, it just kind of stalled out on me. And this happened to me, I think I was working with it, so it happened about 3 times last time I went flying. And on the last time it happened, on the first 2 times, I was kind of lucky because I was high enough up to where I can kind of bring it around. Again, this plane flies slow, so it just sort of floats down. So I had plenty of time to kind of get it lined up and land. If I had this issue with a different plane, with a sport plane or something like that, I wouldn't have messed around with it. But on the 3rd time, I kept the plane up there pretty high, and I kept it up high enough so I can kind of just see how it behaved. And I did get it to cut out. But on this time, I brought it around, and I was just coming in too fast on this one, and I overshot the runway, and I had to land it out in the grass field, which is beyond the runway, which is not that big of a deal. It's kind of a soft area. So when the plane came down, it just basically, the wheels, you know, kind of touched the grass, and it just flipped it over. I didn't damage it, but at that point in time, I realized, you know, I got to figure out what's going on with this thing. I was checking the fuel plug. I was checking the glow plug. I was checking to make sure that, you know, messed around with tuning it a little bit. Nothing, I just couldn't figure it out when I was out there. So I decided I'm going to go ahead and call it a day, and I'll bring this in, and I'll just go online, and I'll start looking around and see if I can find out, get some pointers, some tips, see if I can figure out what's going on with this. So after searching online, I found a lot of kind of useful information, and there are a lot of ideas when this problem was explained. I saw this on a couple of the RC forums. There were several ideas that people brought up. And then I also, after posting my last video, I got a couple of comments. I think I got 3 comments from people, and they pointed out that probably what's happening here is because it's a half tank of fuel when it's happening, you probably have a leak in the fuel line inside the tank. And that's probably the issue. And this seems to be what the consensus was when I was reading all the other stuff online. Now, there are some other things, again, that people brought up that I'm going to talk about briefly, but it seems like this is the case. I hope it is. And my goal here in this video is I'm going to pull the cowl off. I'm going to pull, obviously, the prop off. I'm going to inspect it, and I'm also going to pull the tank out. And hopefully it's obvious. Hopefully when I pull this off, there's going to be a hole in some of the tubing somewhere in there, and I can say, yeah, eureka, I found it. If I can't find that, then I'm going to be scratching my head a lot longer on this. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this prop off of here carefully. That was easier than I thought. This is a Harry Higley prop nut, aluminum. Oops, I just dropped it. This guy right here. And then this is a lock nut. Being a 4-stroke engine, they have a tendency, sometimes they can backfire and throw a prop nut. So it's good to have a lock nut on there. Throw a spinner or a prop nut or a hub, if you want to call it a hub. Okay, so let's pull this off of here. I love the wood propellers when you're flying a plane like this, kind of older looking plane. Sort of a vintage plane. I like the older. This is a master air screw. I don't know what size it is. I think it's a Oh, it's a 12.6, I think. Okay. Okay, well, before I take the cowl off, I'm going to mark my needle valve location. So this is an extension onto the needle valve. It's just a piano wire kind of shaped like an L. And I'm going to mark its location on the cowl so I can put it in the same place when I install the cowl back on. So I'll just put a mark right there. Now what I'm going to do is the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to go ahead and screw it all the way in. I'm going to count how many times I have it turned out. So I'm going to screw it all the way in. About 1 3/4 plus, a little bit right there. So now that I know where that is, I'll just take it out now. So what I did there is basically when I go to put this all back on, I'll screw the needle valve all the way in, and I'll just back it out 1 3/4, somewhere around there, to get it in the right location before I start it up again. Okay. I like to use these old sort of cupcake trays to keep my stuff in as I take it apart. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and take the cowl off. I've got 2 screws on each side. I'm going to go ahead and flip it over and do the other side and come back. Alright, so let's kind of pull this guy off of here. Kind of tricky. Okay. Now this is my fuel line where I fill it up. So I'm going to pop this off of here. Oops, I'm going to put that right back in so I don't leak. Okay. Okay, so there's the cowl. Put you right up here. And there is the engine. So being a 4-stroke, it has an outlet in the crankcase inside so that it can depressurize the crankcase. That's what this tube is right here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to flip this over so I can see the muffler. This is the line coming off of the muffler, and as that one person noted, is they had a crack in the line. I don't see anything here. And let's see here. Looks pretty good. Let me look at these lines closely. I got to really kind of look in here and see. Let me pull this over here now. So this is the line coming off of the, obviously going into the carburetor. Makes that S turn, trying to get everything to work when I was setting the engine up. But again, that's worked fine from day one, so I don't think there's a problem there. But again, it wouldn't be a problem if this was leaking. It would be showing, it would be leaking right here and now, or I would have seen it before. Let's pull this over this way. Look in here. Okay, this is the line that I use to fuel the tank up. Again, that would not be a problem because that one actually doesn't do anything except fuel the tank up. So I guess maybe in theory, if it had a hole in it, that would be a problem, but I don't see anything there. Then here's where this one goes in here. And look at those connections. inside here. I don't want to bang this thing up on anything. Huh. There's something down there. Wow. Hold on a second. So this, wow, that looks like, I don't know what it would do. Oh, that's, never mind. I thought it was a crack, but it's actually a little piece of grass on there. So these kind of these lines look like they're okay. And again, I wouldn't expect this to be, if these did have a hole in them outside the engine or outside of the tank, it wouldn't be, there'd be other issues. I'd have leaks that I can see and such. So these lines look pretty good. So what I'm going to do is I'm now going to pull, I bought myself some new tubing, so I'm going to pull these off of here. This one's probably on the muffler. It's probably these mufflers get super hot. I may have to cut this off of there, but wow, yeah, I'm gonna have to cut that one. That one's really there. Oh, there it goes. Okay, so I'm gonna pull that one off. I'm gonna pull the one off the carburetor. I'm going to replace all these lines anyhow, so okay, that. Then I'm going to pull the tank out. So the tank kind of slides in from back in here. It slides into this compartment, and then it sort of holds in place. I'm just using a tie wrap to kind of form like a little brace for it. Okay, so I can pull this out of here. I should be able to just pop this back out easily enough. There we go. Don't want to. Okay, there's my tank. Now again, this has been in the plane for about 3 years. So let me get this out of the way here and come back. Okay, so I'm going to pull there's some fuel left in here, and I'm going to pull this tank out. Now I will say that when I originally installed this tank, I didn't add a clunk to pull the fuel back out. Basically, which would be this line, which would have been on this line right here. I just used this to fill it up, but I didn't add a clunk in here. I kind of forgot to do that. Obviously, that would not impact this whatsoever. It just makes it so I can't get all the fuel out of it when I want to draw it out. But I will use this now, and I will remove it. Get it out of there. Okay. Let's get this out of the way. All right, so I really hope that when I pull this out of here that I do have a hole in that somewhere so that this is easier. But yeah, everything looks good on the outside. And let's pull this guy out. Now this is an 11-ounce tank. And I'm not sure, you know, I can fly a pretty long time, like as I mentioned, with this thing. And I'm thinking maybe if I can't find a hole or something in here that's obvious, I actually bought another tank, which is an 8-ounce tank. And I may just replace the whole tank. I don't need this much fuel because it runs forever and ever and ever. So I think an 8-ounce tank would actually work good too. So I may do that anyhow, but let me pull this out of here. Seems to be a pretty good tank. This is a Hangar 9 brand tank. I don't know if they get these made for them by somebody else, but there it goes. Okay, hold on a second. A little bit of fuel in here. Kind of dirty in there. Now again, these lines don't matter. This is what I fueled up with, this one here. And this is coming off the muffler for the pressure. It's pretty dirty, huh? And this one's the fuel line. As far as I can tell, this looks fine. There's a little teeny, I don't know what that is. I don't know why that would matter. Let me see if I can, it looks like a little scratch or something, but I don't know if you can see that in there or not. It's like right inside there. Right here. I don't think that's, yeah, that's nothing. Lordy. So I don't see anything on this fuel line that looks bad. Whoa, look at that right there. Well, I may have just done that by accident when I pulled this thing out of here. Yeah, I think I did that when I pulled the tank out. This thing tore. Yeah, I don't think that, I think I must have done that when I pulled it out. So, let me pull off the clunk. And the clunk itself was free. It was in there free. It was moving all around. There was no issue there. This thing looks like there's something in there. That was jammed in there. I don't know. Here it is. I don't know why that would, again, why it would cause a problem only halfway through the tank. But either that or that was inside my tank when I emptied it out and it just got sucked in there. So I don't know. So I guess what I'll say is that I don't see any evidence for a cracked line, an issue inside of the tank like this. Just don't see it. I'm using my kind of old guy magnifiers, and I don't see anything in this line. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and pull these other lines off of here. I'm just going to, man, they look all fine too. There's nothing wrong with any of these. So I'm kind of bummed out because I was hoping that would be an easy, obvious thing. So I'm going to pull these other lines out of here. Yeah, I mean, I would use this again if I had to. And there's nothing wrong with that. Let's go ahead and pull out the stopper and take a better look at it. I don't see anything. And even if this is not connected, even though it's torn, as I said, I think I tore it when I pulled it out. There's no through going tear or anything. It's just right out here, so that would not be a problem. All my lines look good. I'll blow through these real quick here. That one's open. That one's open. And then this other one. Yeah, those are all open. Okay, well, I'm kind of bummed out because I was hoping that that would have been obvious. I don't know. So what I'm gonna do is I bought myself another tank. It's a smaller tank. It's an 8-ounce Dubro. And I'm gonna just put a brand new tank in here and reset it up, and hopefully, maybe I missed something in this process, but I didn't see anything that indicated to me whatsoever that there was a break in the line or a leak in the line or anything like that. But who knows, maybe there's something I missed. And I don't know, that one little, when I looked at that clunk and it had that little piece of junk in it, you know, did I pull that through when I emptied the tank, or was that there all along and maybe it was causing a problem? But it just doesn't seem like that would have been the case, especially since it was running fine in the first half of the tank. So let's go ahead and get this tank put together here. So this is a Dubro 8-ounce, and I probably use Dubro or Sullivan tanks for the most part, unless it's something like this, which is a Hangar 9, which came from that ARF kit itself. So Dubro, I don't know about their entire stock, but this is a typical Dubro tank, and what I like about them is it has this stopper sort of inset from the front of the tank. And that's kind of nice because what it does, it sort of protects the sort of like your connections here with the brass tubing from getting kind of jammed up against the firewall and things like that. So this kind of adds a little bit of protection, which I like about this tank. Now, the other tank that I use a lot is the Sullivans, and that's what this one is. This is a Sullivan. I think Sullivan has a lot more, they have a lot more styles of tank compared to Dubrow. And one of the tanks, like this is just like one of their basic rectangular tanks. And one thing I like about the Sullivans is that it has this little blister or this little bubble on top, which is a nice sort of receptacle for the air vent coming off the muffler, or the pressure vent coming off the muffler, so it kind of fits up in there nicely. So that's one thing I do like about these. But yeah, the Dubrow are great tanks also, and this one actually fits pretty nice in the Piper, so I'm going to go ahead and obviously use this one. So let's take the pieces out. I got the instructions here, which are, I've put many tanks together, but you know, it's good to take a look at them, look at the instructions, and make sure that I'm still on the same page as they are. So let me pull the stopper out. There it goes. So there's a stopper, and it really looks pretty much just like the one that came off of the tank, the Hangar 9 tank. There's sort of like the little retainer, the retainer plate. And this is what gets when you screw down on the screw, it draws this little retainer up against the stopper, the rubber stopper, and then it expands, and that forms the seal in the tank. There's their clunk. All right, so there's the two brass tubes, and then here's the clunk for the fuel line inside the tank. Oh, something else in there. Oh, there's the line in there. Grab my tweezers. This thing's kind of hard to get out. There it is. All right, so there's the inside fuel tubing. It goes right here. That. Okay, so here's the stopper, and typically they come with two holes already sort of placed all the way through the stopper, and then there's a third hole that is placed almost all the way through, but it's sealed off. It's basically they didn't go all the way through with it. And this one you can open up for a third line. So you have the carburetor line, and then you have the line coming off the muffler for the pressure that pressurizes the tank, and then you have the third line that you can put in to be for your fueling tube, or your fuel line to fuel it up, to fill up the tank. And it also acts as the same line to draw the fuel out if you want to empty the tank. So I'm going to go ahead and the way to get these open, a good way to get them open, is just to try to press it all the way through, and just use the actual brass tube, kind of pop it through if you can. Kind of see that. I can actually cut this now. Like that. All right, so now I have that third line kind of gone through. All right. So the longest tube is going to be the line coming off the muffler, because this has to curve up, so it's going to go into the tank and then curve up. So this one I'm just going to leave alone and probably use it as is. I'll probably trim off some. But what I can do for the other two is I can just cut this line in half, or this piece of brass tubing in half, and that'll be long enough for both of those two purposes. Okay, so these tubes, these brass tubes, are pretty soft, and they're very easily bent. They're very easily crimped. So cutting them, there's a couple of ways to cut them that I know of. So if you don't have, probably the best way to do it would be to use like a roto tool, something like this, because you can kind of cut it cleanly without putting a lot of pressure on the tube itself, so you won't crimp it or bend it. So this is probably the best way, but not everybody has those. And another good way to do it is with a hacksaw, something with really fine teeth on it, because if you had too coarse of a tooth on your saw, it's just going to grab it. It's going to be very difficult. Using a hacksaw is you can use it, but you have to be very careful and hold it. You may want to try to clamp it in something, but if you clamp it, then you could bend it. So you just have to take your time and work slow on it. And you can obviously just use a hacksaw to do it that way. And then another way, of course, is you can kind of just cut it with sort of like a wire cutter like this. Now, if you do it this way, it's going to crimp. There's no way you're going to avoid crimping it. So you'll have to then work with it and kind of bend it back out. If you crimp it, then you can just kind of use the pliers or the like these needle nose pliers to sort of crimp it back out open, and then sort of like work with it and kind of clean it up. But those are 3 different ways that I know you can do it. But I'm going to choose my roto tool since I have it, and then I'm going to cut it, and then we'll clean it up. All right, so there we go. So now I can kind of clean it up now. Okay, so I got the edges on the outside cleaned up, and this is when kind of like these needle files come in handy, because I can clean out the inside now. Again, I want to get rid of any kind of burrs or anything that's in here. I'm going to blow these out and make sure there's nothing inside of them before I get them hooked up. I don't want to draw any little small metal fragments into the engine or into the tank. And then I also don't want any real sharp edges on this. I'm just going to kind of file these a little bit, just kind of soften up the edges on them. And that way, when the tube if the tube bends in this, it's going to help reduce at least kind of cutting into the tubing over time. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and set up these 2 shorter ones. About halfway through. Somewhere like that. And then the longer one. Okay, so this is where it gets a little bit tricky, because you want to bend this one up to kind of meet the top, but you don't want it to kind of get jammed into the top. And this is pretty close to the top as it is right here, so don't have to bend it too much. For a tank like this one, you have a pretty far way to go to kind of get up inside here. This one's actually pretty short, so I can probably tell you what, I'm going to cut this. Well, I'll cut it next. I'm going to go ahead and get it sort of in the right location first. So yeah, this one I don't have too far to go on. It just has to bend just a little bit. So I'm going to bring it back. And now they do make kind of benders and things, or things you can put, like it's almost like a spring that you can put around it, and then it helps kind of keep it from crimping. I just try to be a little bit careful and going to go slow and kind of softly put a little bend in it with my thumbs, my fingers. Something like that. Give a little bit more here. Okay. Throw this in here. I'm going to put the vent tube on top. This will get us close here. And then, flashlight. Hopefully it won't be too bright. I can kind of see it right there. That's the shadow, actually. There it is. Hopefully it's not too bright with the camera, but one thing about the Dubrow tanks is they're a little less translucent or less transparent than the Sullivans. But you can typically see these pretty well. Just put a flashlight or a light bulb, you know, like a lamp or something. Okay. All right, so I'm going to pull this out of here. I'm going to have to still make some more adjustments on it, but this should get us going. A little bit of a, let me put this little retainer on the back here. Boy, there it goes. Probably could have put that on before, but this is all going to bend, so. I probably should have fed this through here. Let's do it the right way. Let's pull this off of here at least. Let me pull this out. Okay. Now I can put this guy in there. All right. A bit more bend in there. This is going back pretty far, so I'm going to go ahead and push it all the way up here. All right, something like this right here should work okay. And I'll go ahead and cut these off. I'll cut this one off once I get it all set. All right. You know, obviously I could have put this whole assembly together, then push everything through, so I'm not trying to make it more difficult than it needs to be, but it looks like I am probably. Okay. Then I'm going to screw this in just to sort of engage that little back plate. I don't want to go too far because these things actually have a pretty low tolerance. Once you get them a little bit tightened, it's hard for them to get into the tank. Okay, something like about there. Now, and if you do look closely, you're not going to be able to see it probably on the camera, but if you do look closely at the top of your tank, you should be able to see the top of that line kind of touching it, getting close to it pretty easily. And there it is right there. So this needs to be rotated. All right, so I'm going to say this is probably pretty good right here. I'm going to cut off this piece right here, and then we'll be able to get it installed in the tank. And I can always make a little bit of adjustments here with it, but looks like it's okay. Okay, so now I'm going to set the fuel line now, and I'm just going to estimate kind of where I think it's going to be. Now again, you don't want it to be up against the back. You want it to be a little bit off the back so that it moves freely. So I know I'm going to be something right about there. And then this guy's going to be in about right there. So I'm going to cut it right about there and then come back and adjust it if I need to. It's a little bit of trial and error because you just have to play with it and get it right. I'm going to put it on the left side. This is where you want to be careful that you don't cut it by putting it on there. Okay, like that. And hopefully, if I pop it in here now, About there. See if I can see it down there. It's kind of hard to see. Okay, so it's not getting stuck along the back, and it kind of goes. I can see it here. You may not be able to see it on the camera, but I can see that it's moving freely, and it's pretty much toward the back, so I think that's pretty good. Okay, so that looks pretty good. I'm going to pull this out again, and I'm going to install the line for the filling, or the filler tube. Pull some of this out of here. And I don't want it to get in the way of this other one, so put some of this on here. And what I'll do is I'll put this one back a little bit back here. It's not going to go all the way back, but I think I'll be okay. I'm going to offset it just a little bit. Won't get all of the fuel out of the tank, but you get most of it. Okay, something like that right there. So those will be in there like that. Okay, so those are my two lines. Now what I'm going to do is this. Okay, so when I'm setting up a tank, I like to just kind of keep everything straight in my head. So I like to draw a little diagram, at least until I get the engine set up, so that I can kind of see it. So I always I always draw a diagram. I always draw a diagram as if I'm looking straight at the tank. So of course this will be the top, and then I have my three lines. That, and then here it's going to be the top is going to be the muffler. This right one is going to be my carburetor. And then this left one is going to be my filler. Like that. And that way it kind of helps me remember how I had it set up. Now let's go ahead and feed this in. Okay, like that. All right, I think it's good to go ahead and screw this in now. Can't use that one, I gotta use this one. Now here you gotta be careful because you don't want to over tighten it because it is plastic and you don't want to rotate it. As you turn it this way, you can rotate the stopper, and then it can take the vent line or the vent tube kind of off center here. So I want to make sure I don't do that. Looks like I kind of did there. Back a little bit. Okay, that's good. Yep, so you got to hold it really tight here. Okay, so this looks pretty good. So the first thing I do is I'm going to do a check to make sure each one of these lines is not obstructed. So I'll just put my tube on here and I'll blow through it. That one's good. That one's good. That's good. Now I'll check to make sure that it doesn't have a leak out of the stopper or somewhere else. So the way to do that is just take another line and plug up two of the holes. This. And then see if we can get pressure. All right, so I'll check each one of these. So what I'll do is I'll do this one, then I'll move this one over here. Although it should all sort of be the same. This way I can just sort of double check all that and make sure everything's nice and sealed. Okay. All right, so everything seems to be pretty good on this tank here. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and get this tank in. It's going to be a little tricky because I have to kind of fish the lines through the firewall in this hole right here, and I don't really have a lot of, it's hard to kind of get my hand back inside here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the hoses on first, or the fuel lines on first. I'm going to make myself a little kind of MacGyver thing here. I'm going to try to tape these guys up. Hopefully I can drag it all the way through like this. That. Put one up here. We'll see how this works. Okay. Fish it through. Hopefully I can kind of make these curves. There it goes. Right there. Super careful not to kind of get it. There it goes. All right. Okay, so there's the tank set inside there. Now I can take all this junk off. Okay. This one's already set up. Just gonna hang. It's actually gonna come across here. I'm not gonna worry about that one. That one's gonna hook to the cowl. This is the long one, and this is the short one. This goes to the muffler. All right, so go ahead and I'll do the carburetor first. I'll just bring it through here like I did last time. Don't want any kinks in it, so I'm just going to leave a little bit of play in there. It's going to have to kind of make a little bend. Okay, this line is just going to hang off. This is going to hook into the cowl. It hooks into right in here. That's where I fill it up and take the fuel out. This one is the muffler pressure, and it goes right here. And I just want to make sure that everything nothing gets in the way of the throttle linkage. So I think I'm going to have to move this one out of here and move it around. So I don't want anything to get in the way of that throttle arm. All right, so I have a new tank. I have new lines, except for this one, which is okay. But when I was doing this, as you saw, I didn't find any evidence that suggested there was a hole or a line break inside the tank. And I was kind of started this with the premise that was the problem. So since I'm troubleshooting this and I don't know exactly, I'm not sure that was the case, I started thinking about this a little bit more, and I decided to kind of dive a little bit further into this. And since I have the cowl off and I kind of have the engine exposed, I decided I'm going to kind of do some of the basic things. I'm going to check the valve lash, and then I'm also going to check the carburetor settings, and I'm going to get it running. I'm going to do a kind of a test run and just see if I can fine tune it and play with it a little bit. And that's what's going to be on the next video. So this whole sort of little troubleshooting issue that I've had with the engine and the fuel tank with this Piper Cub and this Saito FA-62 has sort of become a little bit of kind of like a little mini series. So the next video on this is going to be kind of moving on to see if I can just kind of do some tune up on the engine, and we'll go from there. I'm still building the smoothie. It's on the other bench over there, and my next video after this one will be the smoothie, continuing with the smoothie build. and just keep moving on. So thanks for watching my channel, and we'll see you next time. Come back and we'll take a look at this and see if we can figure this out. All right, thanks for watching.